I was born in Kaunus, Lithuania, July 29th, 1934. My mother was a surgical nurse. My mother's life was nursing. My father owned an international bookstore in Kaunus. I read before anybody else. My father was my very best friend. I was in the concentration camp Stutthof. I remember the chimneys when we got there. The smell, I still can smell to this day. If the ghetto was terrible, if labor camps that I was were terrible, a concentration camp was 100% worse. Women were selected at the gas chambers. Women were selected to be taken out and to be shot. So you never know from moment to moment what was happening. I was a kid, I was 10 and a half, and my mother dressed me to look older because grown women were taken to work. They survived. Kids were killed. We were digging trenches. We went from camp to camp. One was finished, we went to another one. We were there till the death march started, and that was January 1945. On the death march, I remember my mother not hugging me, my mother not doing, the only thing she was doing, she was pushing me on, because what was happening, if you fell, if you remained where you are, you were left, you were finished. And we marched, she says 50 kilometers, I don't know. We marched yet and marched till we came and we saw huts. And we were told that we'll have a chance to sleep over in the huts. When we got up the next day, it was confusion. Somebody noticed that those huts were mined, that we were going to be killed. All of a sudden, this I remember very clearly, we heard a shrill, like from a whistle. That must have been a sign for the soldiers to abandon us. The living skeletons crawled out of their huts. One of the women yelled, "I think those are Russian soldiers." With all the strength they could muster, the women pulled down the captain on his horse and started to hug him and kiss him. They nearly choked him to death, and not for his friends reached out to save him. Women were laughing and crying. Some got quite hysterical. Like angels from heaven, you saved us from death. In reality, we still thought this was all a dream. The moment I knew I was free, I think this was the first time that my mother was lost for words, because it was like the most unbelievable thing what was happening. The Russian soldiers were angels. They looked after us. They liberated us. And I didn't have to worry that somebody will squeal to the authorities that I am impersonating, that I am not who I am. It made me feel so happy that I could climb a mountain. I can go to school. I can be my own self, a 10-and-a-half-year-old child. And when we were liberated, we were sure that our family made it also, and especially my father. I only discovered later that my father was murdered January the 7th, 1945. And I was liberated January the 21st, 1945. My mother and I were the only survivors. As long as I live, I'm going to have a warm spot in my heart for the Russian soldiers. If not for them, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't have had a life. I wouldn't have married. I wouldn't have children. They gave me life.